For the record, if white people are comfortable in South Africa, they see that as making black people uncomfortable. That's what they have to fix in the name of equity. Let's go to South Africa. Let me establish this to be really clear. South Africa, there was this meeting yesterday. We were tuning into it live, but CNN kept cutting in. So we knew there was something there, but we weren't able to catch all of it. Okay, so President Trump met with the president of South Africa. And isn't it funny that they're both considered presidents, but it's not all the same thing? Let me set this up for you. In South Africa, the official number, 75 to 80% of all farms are owned or operated by white people. Okay? So let's just say 80% of farmers in South Africa are white. Now, they account for 90% of all agricultural output. So I'm giving you the official number, the lowest number possible. Let's round it out at 80. It's very likely over 90 when you're looking at legitimate farming. 80% though. Play conservatively, check the reference. 80% of South African farmers are white. That is the basis of the conversation, and that is the basis of the lies that we will address. They, meaning farmers, 80% of whom at least are white in South Africa, are being killed at record numbers. Let's call it what it is.
Trump sees the murder of some farmers who are white, so he fires up some videos in the White House. If they chant about the joy for killing those who are white, then he's calling them just what they are, white genociders.
Well,
So,
when you put it like that.
here's the clip of President Trump meeting with the president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa.
President Ramaphosa, and he is a man who is
That's Donatello.
certainly in some circles really respected.
Ramaphosa.
A little bit less respected. Turn the lights down.
Little less
Just put
respected
this
in
on.
some
It's right
circles.
behind you,
Here you go.
Johan.
There's nothing this parliament can do, with or without you.
Ah,
People
shit.
are going to occupy land. We require no permission from you, from the president, from no one. We don't care. We can do whatever you want to do. Who are you to tell us whether we can occupy land or not? Shoot, kill,
I love that he was forced to sit and watch this.
kill the poor, the farmer.
Rub his face in it.
Kill the poor, the farmer.
Mr. President, the Pentagon announced that it would be accepting a Qatari jet to be used as Air Force One.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? You know, you to get out of here. What does this have to do with the Qatari jet? We're talking about a lot of other things. It's NBC trying to get off the subject of what you just saw. You are a real, you're a terrible reporter. Number one, you don't have what it takes to be a reporter.
He's
You're
pulling
not
it
smart
back.
enough.
Pause really quickly. Pause really quickly. This is actually very important because, first off, the CNN was complaining there usually isn't a television in the Oval Office. Oh, so you mean the President of the United States decided to bring a television into his own office? Shut up.
Yeah.
And what that reporter did is Donald Trump knew what he was doing, President Trump. You're going to sit here and you're going to watch people in your country cheer exactly what we're about to address.
Yep.
And he wanted the president of South Africa to answer for it, and the reporter took it upon themselves to change the subject and give him a lifeline. Hey, what about the jet? That's why Trump is pissed.
Yeah.
Because it gave that, basically, genocide apologist, for lack of a better word, it gave him the out and he didn't have to address it. That reporter knew what they were doing. Donald Trump has every right to be furious with that person. That is not journalism. They get the boot right away. Let's finish up the clip.
Well, I could do that. Look, here's burial sites all over the place.
I'm sorry, I don't have a plane to give you.
I wish you did. I take it. I would take it. If your country offered the United States Air Force a plane, I would take it.
It should be noted that immediately after this meeting, they did actually offer their latest helicopter. Yeah. Too little, too late.
I'll pass.
And the media, of course, was furious because they were embarrassed and they're dishonest and they are activists. They are not journalists. So they took it upon themselves to fact check Donald Trump. And now we are going to do the same.
Tweet check. Fact Trump. Trump fact check tweet. Fact check. News.
All right. So there's kind of three layers here. You're going to have what President Trump said, what the left said in fact checking him, and then us fact checking the fact checkers. So,
and while we're watching this, I want to point out it is fun to watch the South African president's face the entire time.
Yeah,
because he looks like when you're a teenager and your mom's reading off your browser history.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Like, what is nakedcheerleaders.com? Like, oh.
Yeah, I remember my dad did it. There was a site called PB. It was Paintball Nation, and then there was a thread. And it was which one would you hit? And it was the Reef Girls from PacSun. Remember they all wore like the kind of thong. And my dad, I walk into it, my dad goes, hey, so I just want to ask you something. Which one would you hit? I like butts.
The one on the right.
Yeah.
I wasn't told this would be part of the dinner conversation.
Yeah.
I was walking and I stopped and I could feel my blood run cold. I'm like, oh no, it's happening. Yes, that's exactly what this feels like right now with this South African president. So here's what President Trump said.
The farmers are black. The farmers are not black. I don't say that's good or bad, but the farmers are not black. And the people that are being killed in large numbers, and you saw all those grave sites, and those are people that loved ones going, I guess on a Sunday morning, they told me, to pay respect to their loved ones that were killed. Their heads chopped off. They died violently.
Genocide is a very strong word. I'm wondering if you can make up your mind as to whether you believe genocide is occurring in South Africa, or you still doubt, and if you have made up your mind, why invite President Ramaphosa here today?
Well, I haven't made up my mind. I hate to see it from the standpoint of South Africa, but also, I'm trying to save lives.
So, okay, pretty straightforward. Here is the left fact-checking Donald Trump saying, no.
Trump is convinced that there is a white genocide going on in South Africa, which of course means there is no white genocide happening in South Africa.
In his meeting with President Ramaphosa, Trump peddled unsubstantiated claims of genocide in South Africa of white South Africans, a group that ruled during apartheid in South Africa.
Irrelevant.
It is a fringe conspiracy theory pushed by the likes of Elon Musk, Tucker Carlson, and David Duke, the former Grand Wizard of the KKK.
You wanted to focus and almost exclusively focus on the issue of white farmers and these specious claims of genocide.
Well, it was focusing on farmers, 80% of whom on the low end are white. Here's the reality. White farmers are absolutely being targeted and killed. Fact check. Okay. Here's more, but you don't have to take my word for it, and we obviously have the numbers. Let me give you the numbers really quickly. The murder rate of farmers, again, 80% of whom are white, at least, it's 3 to 4 times higher than that of the general population.
But how is that possible when they're not being targeted? And I hear 27,000 people are killed every year in South Africa, and these people only make up a small fraction of that.
Exactly.
Oh.
Well, if you're a farmer, you know that your chances of being murdered are 3 to 4 times that of the population. Yeah. Think you might want to flee? Think you might consider yourself a refugee, a target? Yeah. Think you might want to seek asylum? If right now someone said, hey, starting tomorrow, let's say you're a dentist, starting tomorrow specifically in this county, we're not going to stop roving gangs from killing dentists. They're called the anti-dentites, and you're going to be 3 to 4 times more likely to be murdered on any given day, and we're not going to stop it. Think you might leave? Yeah.
Anti-dentites? What are they?
They just hate dentists. Say mechanics. If you knew that your job just because people in the government wouldn't protect you, 3 to 4 times more likely, you're just going to be murdered. You'd probably leave.
Mechanics, though.
Exactly.
In this case,
80% of them in this case would be white. Each year, 300 to 500 farms are attacked. There are 50 to 60 murders, to be clear. And, the government can take your land at any point, and they don't have to compensate you at all, which, by the way, in case you were wondering, yes, that usually does happen after the white farmers get killed. So it's almost like they're working hand in hand with the gangs, or maybe it's just a happy coincidence. In case you still don't believe it, watch this entire soccer stadium praising Julius Malema, right? His party is the EFF party. It's the 4th largest in the country, as he calls for the death. It's not just him, it's the reaction, it's the chant of all the people listening.
Shoot to kill, Yamaza. Kill the poor.
They need a new dance.
Kill the poor, the farmer. Shoot to kill, Yamaza. Kill the poor. Kill the poor, the farmer. Brr, pa, pa, brr, pa. And we are still disrespected by white supremacists that insist that white people must be comfortable at the expense of black people. And when white people are not comfortable, then black people must be punished with sanctions and isolation.
For the record, if white people are comfortable in South Africa, they see that as making black people uncomfortable. That's what they have to fix in the name of equity. Let's move on to the next one. Here's what President Trump did say. He said that there are thousands of crosses, and he showed this video that's a representation of all the lives lost, these burial sites for white farmers.
Now this is very bad. These are burial sites right here. Burial sites. Over 1,000 of white farmers, and those cars are lined up to pay love on a Sunday morning. Each one of those white things you see is a cross, and there's approximately 1,000 of them. They're all white farmers, the family of white farmers. And those cars aren't driving, they're stopped there to pay respects to their family member who was killed. And it's a terrible sight. I've never seen anything like it. Both sides of the road, you have crosses.
Now, the left technically has something here where it's not an actual gravesite, it's a representation, but I'm going to explain to you why this is completely in line with precedent and their claim doesn't matter. Because here's what the left said and what they focused on while they tell you there is no genocide. They said, those aren't actual graves, so no.
One of the videos that President Trump played in the Oval Office, he was claiming that there was 1,000 roadside graves. Apparently, this is a video that had been of a political statement made by a specific political party in South Africa, but not of actual grave sites, just a political demonstration to highlight violence against farmers.
Okay, so they frame it that way. Here's the reality. Those crosses represent the hundreds or thousands of lives lost by white African farmers, basically to a genocide. Fact checked! Okay? It's a representation, to be clear, because they've been killed all across South Africa, often very far apart because they own farms which tend to be quite large. It is a representation of the lives lost. You know, like the Holocaust Memorial, side by side.
Yeah, those aren't actual graves.
No. You guys understand?
By the way, I've seen a cross on the side of the road before.
Yes.
I think Randy Travis had a song about it. I think we're all familiar. It's not a grave.
Yes.
Yeah, nobody's actually buried there. And I love how the media just chooses to focus on that, misses the point entirely, and then has to fit in, it's farmers. It's not farmers. They're not worried about farmers. Say it. They are white farmers that are being targeted. Yes. White farmers. That matters in this conversation, you moron.
Yep. Through policy and in practice. And President Trump, by the way, wasn't finished with his screenings. He really did just put this the South African president through the ringer, even giving Mr. Ramaphosa a sneak peek at some more personal films. I get it's a power move.
It is.
Let that be a warning to you.
Yeah.
Man. Joe Biden would have broken half if he had fallen on the ground like
yes. Here's the next point that President Trump made that they fact-checked. Again, all references available, link in the description. He told them he'd be doing the same thing, regardless of the color of skin.
I think that from all evidence, the farmers in South Africa are being treated brutally. And it's been reported, and nobody wants to cover it. But they happen to be white, and if they were black, I'd do the exact same thing. And we treat people very well when we see there's a genocide going on. So if it's a genocide, that's terrible, and I happen to believe it could very well be. South Africa's out of control.
Here's how the left fact-checked him. They said, actually, President Trump is just prioritizing whites over other refugees, something racism.
The Afrikaner, this was the people that created apartheid, right? And now suddenly they were the people who the most powerful man in the world is saying, like, are so persecuted, they get refugee status.
Critics of the president say President Trump's use of the word genocide, his inviting Afrikaner refugees to come to the United States while simultaneously blocking African and other refugees from coming to the United States, undermines a sense of national cohesion in South Africa, but also the understanding of the United States across Southern and Central Africa.
Well, I just finished reporting and talking to refugees who were stuck because of the refugee suspension. So coming off of that to then seeing an executive order where, oh, wait, there is going to be exception. Oh, it's Afrikaners. That made it even more striking.
By the way, yes, that was Jaden Smith transitioning to Danny Trejo. That was, yeah. For those on audio, if you miss Animorphs, you're missing something. You should go back and rewind the video. And we're going to continue, by the way, because I've gone a little bit long. This has all been very aggravating to everyone here. If you are not a Rumble Premium member, click right there. You get to continue with us. It's Chat Thursday. You join for $99 a year, $9.99 a month, but you don't get the mug. And if you are not a Rumble Premium member and you want to remain not a premium member and get everything ad free, hey, just keep on watching and you will be whisked to Tim Pool because we will provide you with more free content than you can watch in a lifetime. We just ask that you let us earn your support.
Yeah.
Here is the reality, okay? This is not a race-based decision. It's a reality decision. Excuse me. Fact check! Okay, and I think that Marco Rubio, I love how unapologetic he is. I can't state it any more effectively, bluntly, or as articulately as it's perfect. Watch this.
Our immigration policy should be based on the national interest of the United States, period. End of story. If there is a subset of people that are easier to vet, who we have a better understanding of who they are and what they're going to do when they come here, they're going to receive preference, no doubt about it. There are a lot of sad stories around the world, millions and millions of people around the world. It's heartbreaking. We cannot assume millions and millions of people around the world. No country can. So you have to have a process of deciding who do you prioritize, who do you allow in. We do it all the time. We do it in our immigration system now under our current laws. Unfortunately, it's primarily based on family connection and not on what they're going to contribute to the society from a merit standpoint. That should be changed, but that'll require statutory changes. But the bottom line is this notion that somehow we have to accept anyone who wants to come to the United States is absurd.
And you know what? Just think about that for a second. The fact that that is offensive to anybody. Hey, we're the greatest country on earth. We get to pick. We get to pick who we bring in.
Best and brightest. Especially
considering that we let in 20 million people over the last 4 years. Yeah, I'm not going to apologize for it. We get to pick on whatever basis we choose. How about that? It doesn't have to be based on race. In this case, most of them happen to be white. They're easy to vet. Most of them are Christians. We know they want to be here. We know that they have skills. We know that they're being persecuted. We don't want to do what we did, just for example, in 2023, where we could find these numbers: 60,000 refugees, close to 20,000 from the Congo, about 10,000 from Syria, about 11,000 from Afghanistan. There were no white countries on the list.
Wow.
So when the left says, now you only care about refugees because they're white, no. It's now we see a list of refugees who can actually assimilate. How do we know? Because they said that they've wanted to. That's their desire, is to come. They speak the language, they share our values, they work, and they want to be a part of America.
They showed up waving our flag.
It's not like
big for me.
A bunch of military-aged single males coming from Syria who are Muslim. By the way, less than 1% under Barack Obama, the refugees coming from these countries. The people who are most persecuted in these countries, from Syria, in places like Afghanistan, right? The Christians who are burned alive first, guess what? Less than 1%. They made up less than 1% of those refugees.
Yeah.
So Barack Obama was kind of choosy too. He chose terrorist countries and the people who align with the religion that breeds terrorism, and specifically left those who were being burned alive in cages out in the cold. I know it doesn't cold there, I assume at night, desert climate.
Well, if you're being burned alive in a cage, it's probably pretty warm too.
It's probably only cold to the degree
it gets pretty cold in Afghanistan.
Yeah, you need an Afghan.
In the mountains.
Pashmina. I prefer Afghan.
How dare you?
So this is where we are.
Also,
okay?
who cares? Like, if you want us to change our policy, vote for it. Like, you can literally go, I'd like to let people in based on, everybody over $1 million in net worth. Now, I'm not saying that should, but you can. Like you said, we get to be choosy. We get to set these standards on who we're going to let into the country and who we're not.
We should be choosy.
Yeah.
Yes, we should be. At this point, shouldn't every Democrat go, whoa, we shouldn't be bringing any more people in because we can't take care of the people that we have? That would be their argument, right? We need more money for social services.
I mean, a
not
landlord
less money
does
for American citizens. Like, we need to take care of who we have here now.
Yeah.
A landlord does a background check, credit check.
Yeah.
Yep.
Are we not the landlords of the country?
Yep.
In Congress there?
I would, if I were in charge, I would immediately go, okay, South Afrikaners, those who have farms, those who want to be here, come here waving the flag. Yep. I'd go, all right, which one of you Cubans were actual freedom fighters who've been persecuted? You've been jailed for fighting against communism. How much do you want to be in the United States? What's the greatest country in the world? Will you renounce your citizenship? Will you renounce the government? Okay, great. Those would be the people I would bring in first. The people who have something to fight for. That's something too. People coming in here for free shit, it's very different from someone who's been fighting for something and through no fault of their own has lost. These farmers have been fighting to keep their land that has been in their families, in many cases, for several generations. They've been fighting to keep something. The Cuban immigrants who came here, especially during the, after Che Guevara and Castro post-revolution, they were fighting to try and keep their country. And they were being silenced, they were being jailed, they were being tortured. Also Rage Against the Machine can put their face on a shirt. By the way, you can grab the Socialism is for Figs shirt at CrowderShop.com. Someone coming here fighting for something, and what they're fighting for is in line with what we provide in the United States: freedom, opportunity. That is very different from someone who goes, there's a free ride, there's a free ticket, and I get to come in and collect some SNAP. Great. Bring in people who have some backbone, who have fought for something before they get here, so they'll fight for what is right when they're here. Hey, there's a standard to use, and guess what? These Afrikaners, they meet it. Bottom line is the left can't stand the thought of any refugees being white.
Trump sees the murder of some farmers who are white, so he fires up some videos in the White House. If they chant about the joy for killing those who are white, then he's calling them just what they are: white genociders.
By the way, and I can't imagine, you have an idea what a target I would be in South Africa with this blingy Casio?
It's bling bling. Bling
bling bang.
TIA.
That watch is 1995. Get him.
One of the places they don't say TIA in South Africa because it's not as bad as the rest of Africa, even though it's, dealing with some issues right now. I don't understand how this is a problem. I really don't. I looked up the definition of genocide as well. Right now, there's a lot of that word going around, and mostly it's not in relation to what's going on in South Africa. It's mostly in relation to what's going on in Gaza, right?
And trans people.
And trans genocide, you're right, trans violence. These guys are being targeted because they're white. Just because these stats seem low to you, 3 to 4 times higher than the average person, that's pretty significant.
And they have a high murder rate to begin with.
Yes, they do. 27,000, that's a lot. But don't get it twisted either. Like, just because these guys maybe are good at defending themselves and not ending up as being one of the murdered doesn't mean that people aren't trying to kill them, right? It doesn't mean that it's like saying that, who was a target? How many people did John Wick kill? I think this was a good example that Lane the Brain brought up. He's like, maybe in his movie, like 500 people. Just say it's 500 people. Fine. Who was the target though?
Yeah.
John Wick. Just because he's good at defending himself doesn't mean he wasn't the target who had to live with his head on a swivel. Right? That's what's happening in South Africa. This doesn't take into account the intimidation, the violent acts against these people that don't result in their murder, the pushing them off of their land, the sabotaging equipment and property, all of those things for people whose families have been there for hundreds of years, by the way. Hundreds of years, longer than we have been a country, by the way.
Yeah.
That's a really big deal to think about. So I think Donald Trump is correct in saying that. But people say, because my attention's over here on Gaza. And by the way, you can think that Gaza is genocide. I understand the problem that people have with what's going on in Gaza right now. I completely get it.
Yeah.
But it's also war, so it's a little different.
Yeah.
You have to understand that there is a difference in what is going on in a war zone versus what is going on in a non-war zone. It doesn't make either one right. Don't twist that. But you do have to understand the difference.
Well, you just saw Theo Vaughn spoke out on this. And by the way, I think he was earnest talking about what he viewed as genocide and had to speak up. And hey, I also understand how someone can look at some of these horrific images and feel that way or think that way. But I do have to ask, can you show me anything comparable, if you look at genocides of the past, anything comparable to October 7th in Nazi Germany that the Jews did, anything comparable that the Jews did to deserve the Holocaust to October 7th, the stealing and maiming and beheading and raping of women and children and killing people at a music festival, anything even close?
No.
So at the very least, you do have to, if you want to say it's an overreaction, okay. If you want to say that there's been some foul play, got it. And that's not to include all of the other acts of terrorism and targeting women and children through decades. We're not just talking about the dispute over land. We're talking about any comparable action. And you know how I feel about AIPAC, because those pricks basically got Hakeem Jeffries elected. But I'm not going to say that Gaza is a genocide and that it's comparable in any way to the Holocaust or the Armenian genocide. I'm not. Because you do have to acknowledge that there's a difference when an act of war, certainly one of the worst, most deplorable acts of war, is committed, which elicits a reaction. You can argue that the reaction is wrong or unjustified. I understand it. I don't agree with you in most facets, just to be as clear as possible. But let's not create a false equivalency between the Holocaust and what's happening to Hamas. And even those who are not members of Hamas, but who happen to harbor them or are collateral damage. It is not the same thing. And I don't believe that any Nazis were going into areas where the Jews had not yet been rounded up and giving them water and supplies. I didn't see that. And also when people compare what's happening here to the Gestapo as far as deportations, I don't remember a lot of Jews scaling a wall to get into Germany.
No.
So again, these comparisons kind of fall on deaf ears for me. And I think most people know it, but I think it's disingenuous and people want to make their case.
Yeah, we've ceased to have the ability to have honest conversations. Like the people that were killed last night, the two Israeli diplomats, I believe. I think they were both diplomats that were killed by somebody who's yelling Free Palestine. People say it's a false flag event, potentially. The guy sat down and basically waited to be caught. You know, it does look weird that happened that way. I don't
we don't have a lot of info, so we didn't really cover it right.
Yeah, exactly. I don't really know what's going on there. Like, this is what they're going to do to drag us into war. You can hold the opinion that I hold, where I don't love what Israel's doing right now, the state of Israel, right? I don't love how they're prosecuting this war. It doesn't seem like there's a really good, solid plan in place to end this war or to kind of have whatever victory looks like. And that's always a problem, even when we did it in Vietnam. What does victory even look like?
Right.
Same thing in Afghanistan. We don't even really know what victory looks like. And that's a problem when you don't have that, right? But I'm really pissed off at people who are saying, hey, these people are dying. Yes. Okay. War sucks. Did you know that? Do you know 2 million civilians died in Germany during World War II? Civilians, not people who were fighting in the army, civilians, right? 2 million. War sucks. It always sucks. It sucks for human history. We've never had play-by-play during war from the war zone like we do today. We've had some media coverage, but it's kind of hard to get out. We have social media now. I'm pissed off at Egypt. I'm pissed off at Jordan. I'm pissed off at Syria. I'm pissed off at all these other countries that refuse to take one person. Egypt could open the gate tomorrow. Humanitarian zone could be set up tomorrow and done. I'm pissed off at Hamas. You could have released the hostage. You could have not attacked on October 7th, but let's just go past that. You could have released the hostages. You could have honored ceasefire agreements. You could not put your headquarters underneath a hospital or in the middle of a refugee camp. You could not be stealing all the aid that's going in and using it for your own purposes.
Yeah.
You could be not holding babies while you're shooting at troops. There is a lot of an honest conversation that can happen on both sides of this thing, looking at what people are doing right and what they are doing wrong, and we refuse to have it because it's always just Israel bad.
And Josh had a point. If we could ask Mission Control what's the number of hostages that are still being held or unaccounted
They're holding
for?
Corpses.
No, too. I know, but I would like if there is a number, an updated number, because it's been changing daily. What were you going to say, Josh?
Oh, Gerald mentioned the 2 million civilians that died in World War II, and I think a lot of
just Germans.
And I think a lot of people in America, it's interesting to say too, just Germans. So there's a lot more than that. But a lot of people in America have this fantasy of America coming in, storming Normandy and then just going through and being the heroes all throughout and never doing a single thing wrong.
Right.
We killed some of those civilians too.
Yeah.
That's what happens in war.
And
so I think it's important to mention.
And it doesn't change the fact that we were on the right side of history.
Correct.
Even though there was collateral damage.
You can be on the right side of history and there is collateral damage.
Yeah,
so,
and you can be on the right side of history and have some people who were fighting for the right side do the wrong thing, too.
Yeah.
You're still here on YouTube. Remember when we could say whatever we wanted on YouTube and people didn't have to censor out words like gay? See, even that, right? That's not even a swear word. Or the word sex. Even if you're just talking about it, you're not saying anything profane. That's why I live stream on Rumble 5 days a week. Go subscribe over there. on Rumble, where you get the live show every single day. If you're still using this archaic form of delivery for information on YouTube, I don't want to judge, but your father hates you.